Okay, so I've decided to create a video on the referencing guide. This is going to be perhaps a bit of a long, monotonous video just because I'm going to be going through the document section by section, which can be quite difficult to listen to for a long period of time. So I suggest you go through it slowly, listen to it at your own leisure, stop and pause if you need to, or pause when you need to, and then continue again. I'm trying to take you through referencing because I know it can be quite difficult for someone who hasn't used referencing before and is very, very detailed. So I'm going to try to go through this document step by step, page by page, line by line, if possible. If you are still unclear, please feel free to message me. I completely understand it's quite difficult. Well, after this video, I'm also going to do a bit of a video on a PowerPoint to pull out specific points that I want you to focus on. Remember, the referencing guide at TOGI is updated every semester because students come up with new questions and new considerations for the referencing guide, so we do update it. Every university uses a different referencing system. So, for example, other universities might use APA, they might use Harvard like we do, etc. So we use Harvard, but we use the TOGI version. So we tweak the Harvard referencing system a little bit, or the referencing style, and that affects the way the structure of that affects the structure of the actual reference to the point where the dots and commas would be at a different place, the brackets would be at a different place, so various elements included or excluded, dependent, of course, on the referencing style that you are using. I'm going to try to break this video up into parts, so hopefully make it less overwhelming. I'm also going to give you examples as I find on the internet. I will go do the PowerPoint as I said, and then of course I will leave it open to questions for you to then add on either the student forum or to personally message me. Okay, so your contents page outlines what type of referencing is found within this document. So it's quite, as you can see, it's quite long. It's a lot longer than it used to be. Then we talk about the quick referencing guide, the introduction. So okay, as I said, we use the Harvard convention or the Harvard style. And so we need to all use as staff and students, and this is the only style that's going to be accepted by Turnitin. So remember, Turnitin is where we put your work through. It's a similarity checker. We check how similar your work is to any other works found on the internet, in books, journals, and also as compared to fellow students or other TOGI students. Your Turnitin accepted percentage is 12%. That does not mean that if you plagiarize or if you copy and paste from other sources under 12%, your work will not be checked. Your work will still be checked if it's under 12%, and if you are found to have copied and pasted, of course, you will then be flagged for plagiarism. And you'll go through the process of plagiarism as outlined in the plagiarism documents that I also uploaded to the unit. If you, for example, your percentage is higher than 12%, but it's not because you've copied and pasted, it's, for example, because you've added the cover page, which, of course, remember not to do. You must include a basic cover page, but if it, for example, it's over 12%, but it's for reasonable reasons, and when the lecturer checks they can see you haven't plagiarized, that's also fine. But do your best to make sure that the similarity percentage is as low as possible. The purpose of referencing is to acknowledge the person who has written the information that you have extracted or you have read and paraphrased, whatever the case is. So you need to ensure that you always give credit to the person who's created the document, and you need to ensure that you're using valid and reliable sources. So what do I mean by that? So many people use things like Wikipedia or study.com. They are not valid and not reliable sources because anybody can edit those websites, including things like studynotes.com and other places where people can upload their personal work. This work has not been peer reviewed, which means professionals in that field have not reviewed the content to see if they are correct. Therefore, you should not be using sites like this. Often students use Wikipedia, but if you do, your work will not be marked, or that section of your work will not be marked. You can use sources of reference which are found in a book, journal, articles, or a web page. A lot of students nowadays use web pages, but I would urge you to try and use more journal articles and books because these really have a huge amount of validity in your work. They have been, if they correct sources, they've been peer reviewed, they have the most relevant and updated information, and they really bring gravitas to the work that you present. Let's move on. So remember also as a lecturer, I do check your references. I'll actually follow your reference and I'll find the book or the journal or the website that you've used to have a look. A lot of students adding references incorrectly. And for example, they say they can't find a date on a web page, but usually the date is right at the bottom of the web page. And it's usually quite current because web pages are easy to update regularly. So just make sure, we'll talk about that later and I'll give you examples as well, but just a point for you to think about. Remember, without referencing, as it says here, your work is not valid and then it'll be seen as plagiarism and it looks and it will be viewed as plagiarism. The document on plagiarism at TOGI, I hope by now you've already gone through it. That does outline the process of what will actually happen, what process will be followed if you're found to plagiarize. And essentially that would be that you'd get 0 for the assignment. The lecturer would have to report you to the coordinator and HOD, which means we put on the plagiarism register. And after an investigation takes place about the assignment, having a conversation with you, and so on and so forth. You don't want to be on the register because, of course, if you've been on there for a certain number of times, you could have to appear in front of the management and then possibly be suspended for the semester, for the module. Remember, every tertiary institution does this. Lecturers are obliged to do this because they cannot accept plagiarism, any work that has been plagiarized. Of course, as a lecturer, we want you to learn the best way to reference early on so you don't have to sit in situations where you're appearing in front of a management team or you're on a plagiarism list. Okay, so referencing must be included in both of the following elements. So in-text references, those are citations within your assignment. So I'm going to show you an example of that from a web page now. And this provides a shortened version of the source you are referencing. So it will just be the surname of the author or the corporate author, which is like the organization that has written that document. Sometimes it's not one author, it's an organization that has perhaps provided that document, or it would be a website name, for example, and then you place a comma and then the year of publication or the year the website was last updated. So remember that they must be used both when you're paraphrasing and when you're quoting, or mostly what you'll be doing in your assignments is paraphrasing. So you'll be reading from other pieces of work and then creating your own information. And when I say creating your own information, you don't want to use the exact words of the author. You'll be putting it in your own words, not to the point where you're just changing one or two words, but actually completely formulating a new sentence, a new paragraph. So you cannot say things like, in 1942 he was born, and then you put it into words he was born in the year 1942. It needs to be completely different. It needs to be completely from your viewpoint, but you still have to credit the author from which the information came from, even though you're paraphrasing. Some instances, yes, you can do a direct quote, but I would strongly suggest that you keep those to a minimum because direct quotes can make your work quite heavy, and it doesn't really bring your voice into the work. So a direct quote would be 2 or 3 lines from the author's works, but it has to be in inverted commas if it's a direct quote. If it's exactly the same word verbatim, it has to be in inverted commas. Again, as I said here, the in-text reference only shows the author's surname, year of publication, and if it's a book, it will have the page numbers. A reference list is found right at the end. I'm going to talk about this again a bit later, but I want to say it now as well. It's found right at the end of your assignment. It's the absolute last page of your assignment. It's called a reference list. Do not use the word bibliography as some other institutions do. It should be in alphabetical order. It should not be numbered or bulleted. There should be one single space between each of your references, and each reference has to be in the correct order. In the correct structure. So it needs to follow the structure you'll be seeing in the rest of this document. I just want to draw your attention before I show you the rest of the examples. I want to draw your attention to just a bit of information on direct quotes and the reason you shouldn't use them too often. So direct quotes, as it says here, should be used to show what your argument is about. It doesn't replace the information, but it just substantiates what your argument is about. It should be used for, if we could say, dramatic effect, but as they say here, use it sparingly. And direct quotes, use direct quotes in your work, it looks like you're just trying to fill the page. You don't really understand what you need to do. So try not to do that as far as you possibly can. Try not to then only focus on one author. The best academic works, reviews and references many authors as possible. So in one paragraph, I don't want to see 3 or 4 or 5 times you've referenced the same author. That just shows you've read only one book. But if you do reference, if you quote or in general referencing as well, I would suggest that you do not have, tons and tons of references or quotes from one person. And here I like that they talk about try not to cite your introduction and conclusion, or try not to cite in your introduction and conclusion. It's quite an important point. I wanted to add this. I found on the website, Monroe College website. I wanted to add the address up here so you could have a look at it. But I'm just going to go through it very quickly. Remember, it's not using the same referencing style that we do, so it won't be exactly the same. But I wanted to show it to you because it's actually broken down quite nicely. And so it talks about how you would have your in-text citations or your in-text referencing. And they do it the same that we do up until that point. They put the surname of the author and then comma the year, and then usually we would close brackets unless it is for a book or when we have to add page numbers. We would then add the page numbers, which I will show you later on in this video. Remember, ours looks different to this. We would have it a bit simpler. The full citation or the full reference for your reference list, which is at the end of your assignment, ours looks similar to this, but it's not the same. We do not have brackets at this point, and then some of it work is italicized and so on, but I will show that to you later on. We have 3 types of in-text citations, which is what I actually wanted to focus on. The first one is that when you summarize, and so you summarize the work, you put the author's surname and you've added the date at the end. We don't use this too much, but this is a way that you will find it in text. You paraphrase, of course, you put in your own words. Then you will put at the end of your sentence without actually directly referring to the person. As you can see here, they have not, whereas here they've referred to the person. Here they have not. We've just put the information down. Even though it's paraphrased, written in your own words, but the information and the gist and the idea was from this text, you'll put the author's surname, comma, the year, close brackets, and then a full stop. If you're doing a direct quote, you'd say according to this person. Remember, you could even do this in the paraphrasing version. So you could say according to this person and then still write in your own words without the actual quotation marks, because it would be in your own words. You could also reference like this, according to the person, then the year in brackets. You then add, in this case it would be in a direct quote, they had the quotation marks there, and then they add the page number. Again, ours at TOGI is different. I just wanted to give you a view of what it could look like. So an example I found again, remember they're not using the TOGI-Harvard version, so it is different, and you'll figure that difference out a bit later. But this is a sample assignment, and as you can see, they've written down all the information necessary for this assignment. They've added the in-text references. Remember, we have a comma here after the author's surname. Our pages will look different. Surname, again, commas are missing here. When you write et al., that refers to the fact that you have a book that has many authors, so 3, 4, 5, 6 authors, and instead of writing the surname all the time, you'll add this over here, but only if you've already written it out once in your assignment. So if you've written this out completely somewhere above in your assignment, you can then do it like this to shorten it later on. Of course, the comma is missing. So everything that you've referenced in your assignment needs to be found in your reference that's at the end of your assignment. But I just wanted to show you what it could look like in an assignment already completed. Okay, so I hope that gave you a bit of an idea of what in-text references are and what a reference list should be. Again, the reference list should be at the end of your assignment, and it will include full information about the source, and that's things like the author's surname, initials. It depends on the source. So I'll show you what exactly the expectation is per source. Okay, so you have to have specific elements in your reference, and this is an explanation of what it should look like. So an in-text reference would be the name of the author, the year of publication, and then the page number. Okay, so again, you use it when you do paraphrasing and quoting. So a reference inside of the sentence example, as we've just seen a bit earlier, you'd say according to Barron, who is so you directly referencing the author. You'd say according to Barron, which is the surname of the author, open brackets, the year the book or the document was published, and then you'd have your colon, is it called colon? Yes, the colon, and then the page number, close brackets. You then explain in your own words the information that you're wanting to have explained. If we come down to the next one, which is the reference at the end of the sentence, you would then explain the information in your own words. you would open your brackets with the surname of the author, comma, the year that the piece was published, colon, and then the page number, close brackets, full stop. I'm actually saying every dot, comma, and bracket because it's extremely important. You have to get the structure correct of the referencing style. Then we looked at the reference list entry. The reference list entry would be found in your reference list. As I said earlier, I'm going to say it over and over, in alphabetical order, not numbered, not bulleted, a space between each reference, and in the correct structure. You start with the surname. This is specifically to a book, for example. Not every reference looks like this. It depends on the source of reference you're using, but in this case it's a book, so you use the surname of the author, comma, the initial, full stop, the year, full stop, in italics the title of the book, full stop, but not in italics, the place it was published, which is London in this case, colon, and then the publishing house. In this next part, I really like how this is broken up because it explains to you step by step what every part of the reference is. In this case, some books have authors and, editors. So the book is edited by people, and then the chapters, for example, are written by various authors. This is an example of how to reference if the book has editors. So you start off with the chapter author, so who wrote that specific chapter that you're drawing your information from, the initial, which is obviously the initial, the first letter of their name, then the full stop, then the date. I can like how it's color coded as well, so the date over there, full stop, the chapter title, and then you'd say in, well, full stop in, colon, and you'll actually then put down the book. The book editors, so these initials and the surname, and you'll put in brackets that they are the editors, so EDS is to say that they are editors. Pay attention carefully to the commas and dots. Then in italics, you would then add the book title, the location of the publisher, and then the name of the publisher as well. Okay, if you're referencing a website, I'm going to end the video here and then start a new one just because this one is quite long already. It's the same thing. The author's surname, initial, the year, the date of publication. Usually you'll find this right at the end of a web page. At the next video, I'll show you where to find that, where it usually can be found. You will then have the page title, remember, not the website title, the page title. Then you'd have online, available at, so the URL, and then the date has been accessed in this format. And please, if there is not, I'll show you this later as well, if there is no author, you would put down the corporate author or the website name.